This is the Ambitious Creators Podcast with your host, Max Sinclair. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Ambitious Creators Podcast. I am joined, this is the second episode actually, because the first one was me interviewing myself technically, which Margo, you found particularly hilarious.
What I would do for my first episode, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I'm joined by Margarita Samsonova. I don't normally call you that very often. It's Margo to me. And you're an environmentalist first, I like to think is the best way to describe you. And then probably, I'd say content creator. Is that a good name for it? Or what do you call it?
This is the title that I created for myself. I call myself environmental content creator.
Yeah, I think that's a good combo. I think it's like, because influencer is a really like, people just don't like that word, do they? There's so many negative connotations to influencer. So yeah, you describe yourself, how you introduce yourself. What's your story?
Yeah, so I call myself environmental content creator, and I used to be called just like an influencer. I used to be like pretty basic. My focus used to be just like traveling, being fancy, staying like in cool places, beautiful hotels, posting pictures about it on social media. And then after a while, I just got bored of it, like bored of social media, bored of like some sort of like fake life that I wasn't even part of. I was just doing this to show it off to the world, but I didn't even enjoy it because I was just like busy creating all this like content. And then I gained over 100,000 followers on Instagram. And one day I just started questioning myself, like, what am I teaching all those followers? Like, what, just like how to shop, getting pretty dresses, staying in pretty places. Like, it just wasn't enough for me. So, and I was always into nature, environment, and animals. I have a degree in zoology.
Yeah, I think that's the bit that, like, I remember me and you have done film projects before and stuff, and like that was the one I remember was some people would say to me like, she doesn't even know anything about wildlife or something. It was like people just completely glaze over the fact that you've done a degree in it. Like,
no, exactly, because I don't know, at some point I got so into this influencer life that I completely gave up on my dreams. And my dreams used to be I used to want like to have my own like animal rescue and participate in different charity projects in animal conservation and stuff like that. And I completely gave up on that dream because this like influencer world was so shiny and I was getting free makeup and free dresses and all of that. And at some point I just got really, really bored of that. And I decided to come back to my roots, to my naturalist, sustainable roots, if you know what I mean.
And that's what I always talk about. And this is why I started the podcast, to be honest, because I've done the same thing recently of like, you know, I cancelled the Eco Companion. Cancelled is such a bad, cruel word of saying. It's like it's a TV show. Like I just cancelled it, or like cancel culture right now with and because I realized like my why is different to that. It's about kind of more progressing humanity in this different way. So that's you really doing the same thing, isn't it? Of like figuring out your biggest kind of whys, like why are you here? Like what's that kind of self-fulfillment and everything. So how would you try and describe that now? Like what is your biggest kind of why? Like why are you here and what's your purpose?
I think I have like my purpose clearly defined. I even have it like in a beautiful sentence that goes on my website.
Hit us with it.
It is to raise awareness and appreciation for our natural world. And I think that even without social media, I would live that purpose daily because I am like a person who is just extremely excited by nature. And if I go out with my friends into like forest or anything, I would just be like, oh my God, look at this. Isn't that so amazing? And I would just like point things out in nature and just like random facts. And I would see animals or insects and stuff like that. And I would just like get people excited about nature. And this is what I do basically daily. And then I take that and I do that on social media too, to kind of bring that to the wider audience. Kind of thing, you know. So even without social media, I was always thinking about it, if social media didn't exist and I would live in like prehistoric times, like would I still live my purpose? And
Basically, what kind of cave woman would you be? Is that
yeah, yeah.
the
And I would be just like this crazy cave woman who would just be like, oh my God, this is so exciting. The berry, the animal, the plant. Look at that. I chopped it up. I cut it open. This is so cool.
yeah.
So that would still be me. And I feel really good about it. I feel like pretty authentic in that role. And yeah, I don't know what the kind of like the future holds for me. Like right now I'm doing this, and maybe in a few years I'm going to be doing something completely different, but I think it would still be aligned and connected to sort of like this purpose and mission, because like
Yeah.
nature always was part of my life. And yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, me and you, so we obviously have known each other now for, we were talking about it, I don't know when we did Sweden, would have been 3 years ago or something, 4 years ago maybe,
Yeah.
something like that, and probably 4 years to be fair. And um, we did like, so we went out to Columbine Eco Lodge and we stayed in these like kind of forest huts, which had like no electricity, no running water, none of this stuff. Like the stream was how we washed our dishes and all the rest of it. And that was epic. Like we were both just talking about how like the video as well. Andy Trace, our friend, is a sick filmmaker, and that film just makes you like. I agree with you as well. You messaged me out of the blue about it, and I like, because I have the same thing where I'll be like, just randomly go to my YouTube channel and just like see that video again. I'll be like, oh, like,
Oh, so good. It's such a great memories, but also, the feeling when I just remember being there, it was so good. Like
yeah.
the perfect holiday for me, for sure.
Mm,
Not staying in like a 5-star resort, but sort of like survival thing in the
yeah.
wilderness, when you just like go in the forest and you just find things and you bring them back and people are like, what did you bring? Like, what did
Yeah.
you
Yeah, I
know
think
what I
it's
mean?
like, well, that was like the two perfect examples of that is literally you went and got us mushrooms, like potentially deadly mushrooms, and that was like the first time I'd ever met you, and it was like making us mushroom stew, and then and then you found the blueberries because this was like September in Sweden as well, which was like they basically no one else was there except for one other guy who was like a Nat Geo writer and his sister, and so like it was cold by that point as well, but like still we had like all the mushrooms and the blueberries and like that is like next level. That is like your Latvian roots coming out.
My mom was so proud of me.
Yeah. I think I was thinking about that when you just said that too as well, was like I think that's the biggest thing which social media gets the biggest shit for, which is fair enough, largely is like a lack of authenticity that so many people just basically aren't. Like so many people are basically like trying to portray the perfect image. Like by definition, obviously people like, filter their pictures and they take 100 photos and they pick the best one and all these things. But like, I've thought about it every time I've met you. That's the nice thing as like a testament to you is like, we literally did go out into fields last time I came to meet you the other weekend. Like we literally did all of those things. And, I like it for a person with hay fever. I was like jumping in fields of straw. Uh, so that's like, I think it was like, and that's, but I think the challenge though, obviously probably for you, isn't it? Is that no matter how much it's hard for you to say it yourself, like you saying, you like these things, how can you separate yourself from everybody else who says it? Like, because anything that you do film, people will say like, oh, well, you're filming that, so you did it on purpose kind of thing. So it's like,
Yeah.
that must be difficult.
It is really hard. And also what is, I think, the hardest is that social, especially Instagram, I feel like TikTok right now, that's why I really like it. It's very different. It's more positive and there's like less pressure to have this like ideal picture of yourself. Instagram as a platform, it is literally idealistic. So the whole platform already says like a bar that you have to like reach, and if you don't reach it, and let's say you're just trying to be portrayed as a sort of like a semi-decent human being,
Yeah.
at some point you do something or you fail or you don't feel good, and people, they are like, wait, but you said you're a semi-decent human being. Now you're not. What's going on? So you're like, okay, so people don't appreciate when I don't post like perfect content. So I only gonna, post perfect content,
Yeah.
Then at some point you kind of like get yourself into this world that perfect or nothing, and you
Yeah.
can't be real anymore because people don't like real. And at some point you're like, wait, but who am I? I'm not this like perfect person. I am not even sometimes semi-decent human being. Sometimes I'm like super bad.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about it too, because all people, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. And we
Yeah.
can't just portray the good side of us, because it literally so unhealthy for our mental health. Is just so bad when people just look at the best side of everyone's lives and they're like, oh, my life is shit.
Yeah.
And
I think
you always gonna compare and feel shit about it.
yeah, I think it's a weird one too, because people will say, everybody agrees that like, say, you should be more frank about who you are, and you should like show the bad sides of your life and things like that. But the problem is that the ugly reality is that humans do like to see, the perfect life as this kind of like idolized thing. And so actually, like you say, you as an individual can post just like kind of average pictures, or you can try and like beautify yourself as much as possible and make it. And like, this is one of the things I was going to talk about actually, because I think it's so interesting, is like, basically sex sells is fucking true. Like, everybody knows it. Like, if you're really good looking, you're going to be more successful on social media. That's obviously true. And so the challenge is, people can say all they want that someone should do X, but if you're only ever rewarded for the basically like, try and be as attractive as possible, try and make it as perfect as possible. And also, in even more of a dark point, I think like unhappiness is like less likely to get that engagement potentially. Like, if you say, I don't know, there's probably a bit of a debate in this. There's probably more subtlety to it that I'm not thinking about right now or saying, but like, if you post about how you've had all this success and you're motivational and all this kind of stuff, I feel like that does better than, probably it's the danger is like, people don't like to hear someone kind of moan or complain,
Yes,
maybe.
yes, it is. No, I 100% agree. Obviously, if I had someone who I follow just like moaning about their life every day, I would not want to hear that. But if you turn that moan into some sort of like learned lessons and stuff like that, then I can learn from that too.
Yeah.
And I guess this is what I'm trying to do too, because I'm going through some like weird period of time, and I think that if, I don't know, more people would be talking about it, then I would feel less bad that I'm going through it. But no one is talking about it, so I feel so bad that I should feel good and happy and positive, but sometimes I'm not, and I'm like, something is wrong with me. But
Yeah.
coming back to the sex selling point, it is like so hard to balance it, because obviously I can just, if you don't balance it out, I can just go into the world where I can put environmental messages on my butt cheeks and twerk it off and get a lot of views. People are gonna watch my videos because they're pretty and sexy, and also learn about environment. But I don't want to do that, and I don't want to sell myself just using pretty looks and sex and stuff. But how do you do it? How do you just make people
Yeah.
hear you if you're not using all those tricks that everyone else is using, and everyone else is using sex to kind of like sell themselves? And it's just really, really hard. So yeah. I really try to kind of like balance it out, like
Yeah.
use it,
Like,
use it.
even I was thinking about this when I was quite good questions to talk about with me and you. And like, that's the funny thing is, even with this, you could so easily, I could not talk about, your work and the environment at all. And I could just talk about like fucking, are you fucking dating anyone now? Or like all of this stuff. And like, that would get probably 10 times, the sad reality is that probably get 10 times more people listening and clicking to learn about that, because that is unfortunately the bit of your life that, and everyone's like, if whatever you ask me those questions, it's the same for everyone, of like, that's the kind of brutal side of it, which I think is like that's why people feel Instagram and social media altogether has that kind of ugly part to it, doesn't it?
It is so sad. The other day, I'm like in the process of making my new website, and I decided to Google myself to see if there are like any articles that I forgot, so I can put them on the website. And literally, the first link when you Google my name was some like weird, sketchy website that was called like Celebrity Couples or something like that, where there was like a whole page about like all the boyfriends I ever had in my life.
Yeah.
What the hell? I want to talk about environment. I want to talk about sustainability and animals. And the
Yeah.
first thing that people are interested in is how many boyfriends I had.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's like, that's the really weird one too of, and that's when I really see it. And I feel bad for women is I don't have that problem. Like if I do a video, like if I talked about it, people would be like maybe interested, whatever. But, and there's obviously male sex symbols and this kind of stuff and all of that, but not in the same pressure to do that. Like the assumption is that I might talk about my work or something, but it's more often going to be the assumption that they might like, you know, slip those questions in and focus on that instead.
Yeah.
And I also think you kind of, I think that women are very supportive of each other. And I think that it's overblown to a degree, but I also see it that people are jealous. And there's like one of my favorite phrases is that one, like, your success shines a light on others' failures. So like, and that's the same, that is a more of a success failure thing of like, are you going to work hard on your work and things like your Instagram following being really big, like you worked really hard on that and that's how you've got to this. But people will discredit that instantly in their head and say, well, she's good looking, so that's the only reason, that's the only reason why she's ever got anywhere. And
But it
I
is
think it's,
true.
yeah.
I cannot deny those things because they're
Yeah.
facts. I am white, good looking, you know, I was born in a European country, all those things combined, they're of course part of, and I don't even call that success. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing and where I am standing on this planet and stuff like that. So I'm not successful at all. And I think because I'm that honest that my success and like even the title of my job, guys, I made it up. I made it up. It doesn't exist. I'm just like trying to figure it out. And people see that and they're like, oh, well, if she made up her job title, maybe I can do that too. And this is what I say, I guess you can, and we all should try, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think it's just a learning curve for anyone. When you're earlier on in your life, you care more about what people do say. They'll talk about it and they'll say like, you know, they'll judge you for those things. But I think over time, you just learn to accept. Learn to accept yourself is the cliche thing to say. Yeah, exactly. Learn to accept yourself. Yeah, cool. And then in terms of, so you just said it then a little bit. I think one big thing that people, especially your followers, would be really interested in hearing is like how to do what you do. So like, how did you, you know, what was the first steps that you took when you first like, there was clearly this tipping point when you, I know that you had a career in like, you know, the cruise industry and there's other things before. So when was the point that you kind of like tipped over to trying to be like, you're basically self-employed and your own person now, aren't you? And I know you want to like stay as that. So
I guess the tipping point was when I think that I was pretty successful in this like travel influencer career, let's say, and I was getting a lot of brand deals and a lot of invitations to go to like press trips and travel the world and stay in hotels. And I used to get like a lot of emails per week to participate in here and this and that. And then I was looking at all of that and it just didn't bring me any satisfaction. Um, and I didn't want to be part of it. I didn't want to travel that much anymore. I used to have this, what's it called, the travel bug, whatever.
wanderlust.
Wanderlust. The only thing that mattered for me in my life is like how many countries, how many new countries can I tick off my bucket list for a year. And then at some point, you know, you just grow up and those things they stop mattering at some point. And I was like, well, there has to be something bigger than just, you know, taking off countries and um, taking pictures of myself. What is it? And then I started just started to kind of like discover more about myself. Yeah, kind of like got into psychology and like personal development with all the books and stuff, to understand more about like what the kind of like the meaning of life is. And it's definitely not in just meaningless traveling and taking pictures. And then
Yeah.
I realized that, and I was like, well, I can still be happy if I don't travel, you know, if I am still doing something good that I really like every day. And what is it that I like? Nature, you know? And
Yeah.
I can still do those things and base my career on that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And what about echo. What about the biggest thing I find as well is that a lot of people struggle with is literally actually making a living. Like you're a creative, basically, is the way I like as a broad term for like everyone's lots of creative roles in it's kind of like the media industry, basically, of like creating content and using that to deliver on whatever. And so like one of the most common things I see, which maybe like someone like myself is, I'm more naturally one way, but maybe less good at the other side. And so is making money. So like, you know, how do you go about trying to find, you know, enough regular income, and how do you approach these companies to find that work and everything? Because I think that's one of the biggest problems that people have actually, is they don't know how to get a
Yeah.
paid job.
Well, I wish we had a third person who would give me the best advice they have on that, because obviously with the current situation and everything that's happening in the world around Corona, like things are not great, you know, and people not necessarily want right now what I'm offering, because other things are more important right now. And I offer environmental content creator, and this is not what brands and companies are focusing on right now. But I'm kind of like using this time to get better and stronger at what I am doing, because things will get back to normal. The world gonna go back to being how it was before, just better. This is when companies would want that. So I'm using this time to, you know, build my website and stuff like that. And yes, right now I'm like not making any money. It's just all the idea that I really hope that gonna come to fruition at some point. But before that, let's say if we're gonna be looking at some good
Yeah.
months.
The kind of the average follower of yours. So how would they like, you know, that their first attempts at trying to convince a company that they should do something with them, kind of thing?
Yeah, so I always say, you know, you have to find something unique about yourself that no one else does. And in my case, it is kind of like my sustainability expertise and my creativity in the content creation world, that I use two of those things and I combine them together. And I don't think that anyone else does that in the world. So that's my first thing, kind of like a selling point. And I am 100% sure that every single person has something like that. Some people don't know what it is. Some people are like, oh, this is not good enough, so I'm not going to go around and, you know, show it off to the world. And then you can find something about that company that like you can combine with what you are doing. So I usually go, if I find a brand and a company that is like sustainable and it's not greenwashing and I would love to work with this company, I learn more about what they're doing, and I find this like one thing that is, I think, is very important for everyone else to know. Let's say, I don't know, they are, you can bring in your packaging and you can and they can refill it for you, and this is something unique that no one else does that. And I come to them and I'm like, I am that voice that can tell other people in like a creative and interesting way that this is what you do. So I'm kind of like a middleman in between people who want to hear that information and you who does those things. So I will tell them about what you are doing, and it's basically trial and error. It's all about how you pitch yourself. If you know your selling points, if you can not just know your selling points but also explain them to the person, so the person can understand what you're saying and what you're actually doing. Because
Yeah.
for me, this was the hardest thing, because no one else does what I'm doing. People don't know what I am offering, so it's the hardest thing to explain to them, like, what exactly am I doing? How can I show them that? And I was doing that in pictures and videos. I had like a whole presentation where I'm just like talking to the client, and I think that was
Yeah.
the best idea ever, just to like put yourself out there, and I know you do that too, like on your website, talk to your potential customer, like
Yeah.
you're already in a Zoom call or something like that, so they get
Yeah.
to know not just what you're doing but also your creative personality, and you're like, oh my god, this dude
Yeah.
is,
This guy's great.
yeah, right, not just because how great he's doing all those things, just
Yeah.
because he's also a freaking good person, you know.
Yeah. We are great people. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because like you've obviously told me about this before. You're like what your project is, and you're kind of like working on your website and everything, and new logo and all this stuff. And then you've got the like yeah, I think the way I see it is it's a bit like, you have these companies like, say, Rainforest Alliance or the Orangutan Alliance is the other one what we work with. And they're all these like certification systems to be like, we prove that you don't use palm oil or you do this or whatever. And then, but yours is more like the creative answer to that of like, you can either have a little stamp somewhere which says like, we're going to be X, like, we're going to do fair trade products or something. Or you can have an entire video about it and actually tell that much more personal story of like, how is your product made? And I think those are the ones that actually people find really interesting. Like everybody's watched those, 10-minute long videos about how to make a pair of shoes or some weird shit that you get on Facebook and Instagram. And like, so if you can do that same thing about a company, like you did Smirnoff and things like that, people don't even think of that, do they? Like that's such a,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's not a space that someone would even go to. Like, and there's all these companies that you wouldn't even think of needing to be sustainable. Like, it's not, people just jump straight to like, I don't know, plastic bottles and stuff, which is the more obvious things, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that, everyone is sort of like trying to jump on the sustainability train. And obviously there is so much of greenwashing, but I personally believe that even if there is a little bit of greenwashing pretty much everywhere, and I can say that I am also greenwashing people because I am not 100% ideal. I don't even pretend that I live this plastic free zero waste lifestyle. I am trying my best and I'm talking about it. But if you come to my house, of course I have plastic. Of course I buy some of the unsustainable products and stuff like that, but I'm trying to do my best. And this is what we should focus on, how everyone is trying to do their best and how those companies are also trying, because they're still investing all this money. They're still hiring sustainability experts to tackle those problems. And it has to start somewhere. If, it's not perfect now, it doesn't mean that they're going to just do this and stop and never do anything else. Like, let's say even Coca-Cola, horrible, unsustainable brand, but they have done so many things over the last few years to make the plastic thinner, to make it more recyclable, to raise awareness. Yes, they're number one polluter on planet Earth, yet they're still trying to do even something, and that something is what people should learn about, because if they would just like do absolutely nothing, then of course they're shit, but at least they're trying.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of it's weird because like I read some history books every now and then, and it puts things in perspective where like whatever we've been around for like thousands of years, and the environmental problem has been a problem for the last like 100 years in a serious way. So like, and whenever we change anything, humans change over thousands of years. Like we're really slow to do anything, and so for us now to change the rate at which we are improving environmentally is unbelievably quick. Like all of the stuff that's happening every year is drastically better than previously. Like say like straws or something, like which is a favorite for a period, but that has now happened, and now like across the whole of London at least, and majority of the UK, plastic straws are screwed basically. Like no one wants to use those. So like the little things like that are constantly happening, and say Sainsbury's is trying to reduce its plastic by 50%, etc. But the problem as well is like we've never had a problem to the planet, facing the planet, that is so quick as well. Like, we need to make these changes within the next whatever year to 10 years drastically to turn it around. So it's hard because we need to be really hard on ourselves, but we also need to be really fair to everybody and say like, every like be realistic with us. Like we are humans, and like change is hard. Like there's a load of old people that are still around who don't want to change. They're happy with the way their life is set up. Like, you know, I'm vegan, stuff like that. Is like how all these things are fucking weird to an old person, and they're like, no, I'm not going to fucking do that. Like I like my way. Like I've lived my life like this my whole life and it's been fine. Like,
And
yeah.
especially like if it's a global company that exists in pretty much like, I don't know, all countries around the world, um, to implement even one tiniest change that probably not gonna make any fucking difference is so hard and also involves so much money. Even like, you know, not offering straws across the whole, let's say like Starbucks.
Mm.
You think about how much money it is to change like all the laws, to educate people, to tell them why they're not doing that and stuff like that. Of course, in the long run, you're going to save money not offering straws, but still you have to think about what you're going to offer to people like with disabilities that are going to need those straws. It's really, really, really freaking hard when you think about it. And
Yeah.
for most people, they're like, come on, just don't offer straws. That's so easy, you know, but it's not that easy when you think about it.
I think I always say it's the same as like a starting a business where, and the same with any problem in life is that when you first think of it, it's simple. Like, you know, I'm going to start whatever, a travel company, or I'm going to start X, Y, and Z. Like I'm going to start selling shoes. That's fine. I'll make the shoes. They should cost about £3 and I'll sell them for £10 and I'll make £8 easy. Then I can spend like, you know, £5 in marketing. And like, and then suddenly you do it and you're like, oh shit, I have to hire 2 people and the factory's rubbish and X, Y, and Z. And it's the same with this. Or like palm oil is a really good example. Like people were like, ban palm oil, ban palm oil. But then there's also these complexities to that. Like I met a lady, I can't remember the name of the charity, but she was banned palm oil, but then she moved to the country, learnt tons about it, did loads of scientific research and was like, actually sustainable palm oil is the way forward because palm oil itself is actually very efficient compared to like, you'd have to basically buy like twice as much land to make the same amount of the product of the oils. So it's much less space needed, so less deforestation.
Yeah.
And if you do it in the right way, it can actually not be a monoculture, like annihilate everything style to it. So there's always this next question, but because people don't like complexity, like they just want to have the easy answer, don't they?
I personally with palm oil, like again, there's not enough research. This like the sustainable palm oil plantations, they just appeared over the last few years. So there's not enough research. What is sustainable palm oil plantation? And I
Yeah.
personally been to a sustainable palm oil plantation in Borneo, which is no freaking different.
Yeah.
They provided few like wildlife corridors and they also planted several different species, but generally, and it has a certification of being a sustainable palm oil plantation, but it's not much different to any other. And I think, you know, to really stop that, there has to be like more money into research. What is sustainable palm oil plantation? And of course, legislation is coming from the government that you cannot burn forests, and even if you pretend that it was an accident,
Yeah.
it also can be illegal, and you can, yeah, go to jail for that. But
Yeah.
right now no such things exist, so yeah, there's no
Yeah.
real solution to that problem just yet.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously had a company around this before with ecotourism. I'm still a big advocate, definitely for that. I think like just if you like the Amazon or something and you want to have all these like amazing animals there and you want to like have that part of our future, then pay in a different way. Pay to go and see it in a way that's actually good, you know. And you know, air travel was like, you know, the fucking conversation of my entire career for 4 years. But I think that actually carbon offsetting and these other mechanisms are really good progressive steps towards solving that in an indirect way until we find a more direct way of doing it. But yeah, but to go back to what you do, I do think that storytelling is 100% one of the best, the most important parts of it all. Because if, like, we actually did one with Kat Capon ages ago about palm oil in Borneo, and I think it's on my YouTube channel still, maybe. And it's trying to like Okja. I don't know if you've seen that one. Have you seen that Okja? Or
Ah,
there's
yes, 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 with
yeah,
the
the big
big,
fat pig.
yeah.
The big
Was it?
fat kind of pig, yeah. That has this like unbelievably subtle but really, or sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's more direct, but a message about like how do we treat animals, and you know the process we put them through. Or like my favorite is the Virunga documentary about the gorillas in Virunga National Park, and just the story of it. That was powerful, and I still remember that, and I still want to like do stuff like that's motivated me as a person to want to like help Virunga specifically. And
Yeah.
like the fact that we could lose gorillas in the nature is like a horrible thought. So but that the reason why that was so good was watching that one ranger that I can't remember his name, but the one park ranger in particular who like is in love, and he's like the father and mother of these orphaned gorillas. And even when these militias are coming in with tanks and shit, that he's like, I don't care, I'm fucking staying. Like, and they have like their own guns to protect just gorillas. Like that is like selfless love, and that just made, yeah, that's motivated me for my entire life. But just being like, do you want to give £10 and you're gonna like, it's just storytelling is so important. I think.
People want to see what actually happens, when and if they donate. They want to see what they're donating to, and storytelling and videos is the tool to show them like this is what we have done, this is what we can do, this is what we want to do, and like join us and
Yeah.
donate more money and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely. I was in South Africa last year at the Rhino Rescue Center, Care for Wild, and things that they're doing there are absolutely incredible. They're saving rhinos from poachers, and they need so much money for it. Yeah, you need around $10,000 a month, just to provide for one rhino and one rhino keeper, and to provide horse patrol unit, 24/7 security cameras around, and canine unit just to protect that one rhino.
Yeah.
And they're a very good example of someone who is using this like social media and all the storytelling and videos to show people, guys, this is what we're doing like daily, and this is what happens, and this is how much money we need, and like please support us and join us. And people do that because they feel part of that story, they feel involved even when they've never been there. And of course they also offer like volunteering, so you can go and see what they're doing and kind of like be part of it and have an amazing holiday at the same time. Because yeah, of course are not involved in like the very specific rescue missions of those rhinos. You're just doing like generic duties, and you're paying for that, but the money is going for something good. So I think it's the ultimate ecotourism, which I absolutely love.
Yeah. What was the name of the actual rhino place again?
Care for Wild.
Care for Wild, is it? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember watching the videos of that. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Feeding the babies as well. They're pretty adorable, aren't they? Yeah. And so another question I had was, again, more like practically. So for someone, lots of people following you, people who want to make that positive impact, but like, how in a much more practical day-to-day way can they use social media because everybody obviously is on it, and so how can they change what they do in their day-to-day life to support these kinds of organizations? But also like how can people help you to keep doing the work you're doing and succeed in your work and your projects and make your the partners you work with happy and all the rest of it too?
I think number one thing is, I think that people should not be ashamed that they're not, sustainable enough, or not vegan enough, or any of the other things not enough. I believe even if you're just trying a little bit, but talking about it, like talking about it is the most important thing, because by talking, we raise awareness already on the situation. And if you are not perfectly plastic free or sustainable, but we're having a conversation about it, I learned something up from you too. But if you come with this mindset that, oh, I am not yet 100% plastic free, so I'm not going to talk about it, then there's no conversation, there's no awareness, there's no like learning from here. So I think people can talk and share those things even when they feel that they're still not perfect enough. I think that process of learning is, the process of our whole life. I don't think I will ever reach the point in my life when I'm going to be like, that's it, I'm sustainable, I'm friendly, I'm 100% done, so I'm still learning. And if I would be ashamed to share all those things that I am sharing because I am not yet that perfect version of me, then there would be no growth. So I think everyone has to be talking about those things, and not just like resharing someone else's content, but also sharing your views about it, because people might disagree, and there's so many different topics and opinions. You don't have to have a degree in it to have your own opinion. And by sharing opinions, having a non-judgmental discussion is what kind of like opens up your eyes, your different point of view, your awareness, and it's all the good things. We don't have to judge other people for doing what they're doing, but also don't keep your opinion to yourself. You can also share it and talk about it. And this is what I really, really appreciate when people do that on my page. Whenever I post something and people have a different point of view, and they're like, well, you're doing whatever you're doing, but I have this point of view. And I'm like, this is amazing. I might have a different point of view, or I might even, change my view and agree with you because you just presented some sort of new information to me. And there's so much information in the world. You will never be able to read all the books, watch all the videos. So just by talking about it is very, very important. And of course, in my case, everyone can share my videos, like my pictures, comment, check out my website, swipe up, all those things.
Yeah, I was going to say you got your new website coming out, so I'm sure they'll go check that out at some point.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be ready by.
You changed your username as well, haven't you? It's now Is it? I got it wrong. I was trying to I'm trying to tag you in something, and I got the most random fucking account.
Oh yeah. It's Margreen_S because, well, obviously someone else taken the green by itself. Yeah, but basically I used to be called Margventure, which is, was all about my adventures. But I never felt authentic in this name, and I also had a different website. So now I changed everything to Margreen, which I think is fun, is cool, and kind of like speaks for itself. And now everything is going to be around sustainability. And my new idea behind the greens is when I would be working with brands and sharing what kind of sustainable things they're doing behind the scenes of their work.
So that's the big thing. So that's what I always like to, like, near the end, is to say, I was like, the big thing is you're trying to create now, and that's this. Like, obviously you showed it to me a bit more. So it's this kind of complete opportunity for companies to be able to really show off this great work they're doing and tell it in a way that's actually like effective on Instagram, rather than a fucking Coca-Cola blog post in some hidden away vault.
And it's, it would be going on my channels, but also it would be going on their channels and their website, and content that is presented in like creative. This is what I try to stress. My content is always creative, is always like positive, and it's not like a classic presenter, hello, today we're doing this and that. And it's like using my personality, which is like very like
you summed up in one single noise.
Just a little bit weird, a little bit, not traditional, I would say, but also fun, and yeah, at the same time educational and inspiring. Yeah.
You just reminded me of Carol Baskin there for some reason. Hey, all you cool cats and kittens.
Basically like her. I love her. I think she would be such a good addition to my
Except show. You've not murdered anyone, and I think you're better for the wildlife than she was. Nice. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap up?
I don't know. No, I think I don't know.
I think we covered things very well so far.
I think we did.
So yeah, let's wrap up. So yeah, thank you very much. I think this has been fun. It was obviously the very first one, other than with myself, that's been on this podcast. But I think, yeah, me and you have known each other for like a good while now, and like we've done a bunch of different things together. So I think it was cool to have you on, and yeah, everybody can see. I'll put the link to the Sweden video that me and you were in, which is fucking awesome, which is on my YouTube. But yeah, so please do subscribe. hit the like, all of the rest, as Margo knows really well. And yeah, you can find us, me at @I'm_Max_Sinclair. My business at Snowball Creations, and Margo is at @margreen_s. Nailed it.
And now it's gonna be margreen.co.
Nice, easy for all of the companies too, all of the people following. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you everyone for joining in. Yeah.